What up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Dojo back, picking up where I left off. What I'm looking at here is my beautiful reflection in a piece of mirror gold acrylic. I'll be using this to do all the raised accent pieces for the sword. I'll be using a combination of CNC and laser cutting to get the pieces that I need. And voila, there we are. I'm going to affix the recess area with some 3M high tension spray adhesive. Right now I'm masking off the places that I don't want to get all that glue on. Even though I can try as hard as I can, I seem to always get that stuff stuck on the hair on my arms. It is truly a pain in the butt. I originally was going to use laser etching to do Dave's face on this piece, but I didn't like the results. So I decided I was going to use a decal printed on clear vinyl. I'm going to clean my surface first, make sure there's no dust, and I'll probably do this application wet, just to make sure I don't get any trapped air bubbles. The water or the application fluid will help wick out the air bubbles and keep this thing nice, flat, smooth, and pretty to look at. Hey, Kata, you need to go outside? Alright, she went outside. A little trim work to finish this thing up. I'm doing this before I actually go to work, so I'm in a process of getting dressed for my day job at Acme Signs. And here we go, here's the reveal. And it looks pretty dang good to me. Minus all the fingerprint smudges. This is a piece of oak. It's about 1.5 inches thick. I'm going to use this to carve or machine my handle out of. Gonna do a roughing pass with a 1/4 inch bit. And this is a 3D cut path instead of the pocket cuts that I've been doing earlier. And I will use a finishing pass with an 1/8 inch ball nose. And this is what I get. Kind of rough for my taste, but we'll fix that in a second. I'm going to start off with an 80 grit sandpaper just to kind of round things out, get all that fur off of it. Can't believe there's much of a handle left with all that sanding I'm going to do to this thing. Just tighten up some of the details. I didn't like how the machine did it, so I'm just going to manually do these, make them a little bit deeper, a little bit more pronounced. I am very impatient when it comes to my grinding tools. I want it to go faster, faster, faster. So I tend to change bits a lot to see what works and what doesn't. Awesome. Now this little accent piece, I didn't machine the back section of it because I was worried that it would get too close to the sidewalls and make it real thin and weak. So I'm going to manually just trim out the recess here where it's going to go around the tang of the sword. This little accent piece will kind of marry the wooden handle with the rest of the sword. Going to get that high torque electric angle grinder just to kind of get everything hogged away. Alright, and after a quick dunk in some water because that thing was hot, we got a good match. And the tang of my sword will slide right through there. Alright, let's go ahead and spit shine this thing and make it pretty. Right here I'm using a convolute wheel on a bench grinder, and it's basically condensed like steel wool. Puts a pretty good shine on it. It's not very aggressive, so it won't get out any deep scratches, but I can see reflection in it. What's up, Ran? I'm waiting for the day when my son asks me to make his own sword. It's going to be coming soon. Alright, those are beautiful. Good start. The same reason why I didn't machine the backside of that accent piece is the same reason I didn't machine the backside of this as well. So I'm going to manually hog out the room for the tang. Good, good. Now we'll give this thing a dry fit to see if we have to do any more tweaking. Awesome. With that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and dye the bottom part of this just to get a contrast of color. I didn't want it all big silver, shiny, one-piece color looking thing, so I'm going to use a black dye. I'm going to brush it right in there on top of my mask. And it looks really good with that texture in there. I'm actually really digging how this turned out. Alright, time to get all these decals up off of this. Now this will provide me a nice clean surface to adhere the laser cut letters. Alright, here are the laser cut letters. There's an adhesive on the back of it, just kind of like a sticky back double-sided tape. And there's a fam enjoying themselves, and we're going to go ahead and get this stuck. Looking good. Let's sneak a peek at this gold finish. Alright. Go ahead and put that back so we don't scratch it in the meantime. Alright, next I'm going to acid etch the accent piece with Dave Chappelle's logo. For this, I'm going to make a resist out of vinyl. I'm cleaning the surface with acetone just to get any kind of grease or impurities off the surface. I want to make sure that acid can get right to the core of it. This part is pretty tedious, but you have to make sure that the whole piece is sealed. That way no acid leaks in and causes etching on any unwanted areas. So I'm going to go around this thing with little strips of this scrap vinyl and get everything nice and sealed. Looks good to me. Alright, this is my bucket of ferric chloride. I made this from uric acid, some steel wool, hydrogen peroxide, and some water. There's videos of how to make this stuff at home. If you buy it commercially, it's pretty expensive. But as you can see, the reaction, it works fairly well. Go ahead and dip these in here. Now this whole process probably took about 45 minutes. I diluted mine a little bit so I could control it so it doesn't etch too deep too quickly. But we can see the outgassing right there and the chemical reaction with the aluminum. Just rinsed it off and put it back to get the scale off of it. Let it etch a little bit more. Look at that, weird, huh? I put a little baking soda in the water just to neutralize the acid. Cleaning it with the toothbrush to make sure we cover all the crevices so the chemical reaction can stop. Nice. That was a pretty deep etch on that. Pretty good. Right now I'm going to level this thing off so I can pour a mirror epoxy in there. I lost the footage of actually pouring it, but there it is, done. It kind of got rid of my texture, but what can you do? It still looks good with that nice glossy glass look. Next up, acid etching the finials on the side. It's going to take the same process as we did on the small accent piece. We're going to make a resist out of vinyl and then seal this thing off to where we don't get any acid where I don't want it. Now I should have probably done this at the beginning before I had all these extra accent pieces on it and before I did any real polishing to it, just in case I made a mistake. But you live and you learn. So we'll go ahead and start from here. The idea is I'm going to brush this stuff on instead of submerging the sword into the acid. Oh yeah, classy. This is a liquid mask. I'm going to get the sides and other places that I may have missed with the vinyl, things where it wouldn't conform. Just kind of get that in there and make sure that that acid won't go places I don't want it to go. There were some places where the vinyl was too thin to cut, so I went ahead and drew those in with a permanent marker. Believe it or not, it actually makes a pretty decent resist in a pinch. sponge brush again, and we'll just brush this on. Now this took pretty much forever. It took maybe an hour per side to get the etch as deep as I wanted. What happens is the reaction would happen and it would bubble, and then all the solution would run off the side into the bucket. So I had to constantly reapply this. Dry fit all this together just to see how it's going to look. Pretty spiffy. What I'm doing here is getting rid of the vinyl where the other pieces would be adhered, so I get a nice bond with the base material. Now, I'm using a two-part epoxy to bind this together. So what I'm going to do is put some holes in this thing all the way down into the base metal so that it'll form kind of like a pin between the two pieces and resist the vertical forces. So if all things go well, this will be as strong as bond as I can get without actually putting rivets or welding this thing together. I've actually labeled the pieces to make sure that they go on the right side, just in case they're not perfectly symmetrical. Going through the acrylic, making sure I hit metal. Alright, got everything glued down. I used tight bond on the wood handle, got it all nice and clamped up so nothing moves. And I gave this thing 24 hours to sit to make sure the glue cured before I handled it again. After the glue was dry, I'm going to pin this together using wooden dowels, straight up OG Japanese style. Very good. All right, I'm going to rivet this piece together just to give it some extra strength. I don't think the epoxy was enough to hold it. I want to make sure when he goes to swinging this thing around that it does not fall apart. That would be very embarrassing. All right, for this handle to look more like a microphone, I need to put the little divots on the side. This is very laborious, and I tried to eyeball it as best I could. I didn't know a really good way to make these lines all nice and even. So by hand it is. I'm going to take my high-speed engraver and get to town on this thing. Cool, looks pretty good. Started off with an 80 grit sandpaper and just working my way all the way up to 600 just to make sure this thing is smooth and has no splinters in it. I'd hate for the man to pick it up and damage himself with it. I'm using a natural and an ebony wood stain for this. I wanted there to be just a color contrast between what would be the handle and the tip of the mic. But I didn't want to do silver or anything like that. I kind of still wanted to display the natural wood and the grain that's in that. I think it's coming out pretty good. I'm wiping up all the excess just so I don't have these spots that would be darker than the rest. So I'm taking care to make sure that I'm wiping it with a towel to make sure that it's even all the way around. Cool. I like it.
Where this can go fast. And this is going to go off because
These plates I laser etched with his birthday in Roman numerals. And I'm going to set them in here and glue them down with an epoxy. These little accent pieces come in gold. I don't really like the gold. I want like kind of a more rustic look to it. So I'm just going to put it on the convolute wheel, get rid of some of that finish that's on it. And there we go. I like the way that looks. I'm just going to tap that down with a little finishing hammer. C'est bon. Looking good. Alright, and here we are with the finished piece hanging on the wall before I send it out. Hope it doesn't get too comfortable there. Wow. I love it. I wanted to share some parting words before I go. First, I wanted to thank Dave Chappelle for being such a huge inspiration for this project. I enjoyed every minute of doing it, and I hope he really likes it. And then I want to thank all of you guys for actually watching this and putting up with me. Now, what I want to talk about is the quotes that I put on the sword. One of the quotes is, "You can't get unfamous. You can get infamous, but you can't get unfamous." And to me, that's a lot to do about your reputation, which means your reputation can only get worse, and you can't erase that. So it's a test of character. You need to make sure that you're always putting your best face forward. It's really hard, if not impossible, to undo a negative stain on your reputation. So you always need to take care on how you present yourself and how you act. And you need to build that reputation as it is an investment into your character. I'm not sure if you meant to go that deep with it, but the words, very easy to understand, but super deep. The other one was stay true to yourself, especially while others are watching. And especially in today's time where people, to me, are overly politically correct. It gets in the way of doing what's right. And not to compromise in the face of your peers or your boss or your family or whatever, to stand up for what you believe is right is a big deal. I believe every time that you don't stand up for that, you lose that piece of yourself that you compromise for. And that's something that I don't think you'll ever get back. Now I gotta get this thing boxed up and mailed off to Dave. Unfortunately, I don't know where the man lives. If you guys can catch him on any of his social media accounts and link him back to this video, I'll put my contact information below. That way I can actually get this to the man himself. I appreciate you guys' help with that. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.